President Trump is floating a possible meeting with Kim Jong Un. Speaking at the White House this morning, the president touted his relationship with the North Korean leader and mentioned the militant regime's nuclear arsenal.
The fact that I get along with him, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. He has 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. Should have never allowed it to happen.
Now, a few days ago, the president announced the U.S. would reduce its joint military exercises with South Korea, saying the longtime American ally declined to help denuclearize Iran and open the Strait of Hormuz. And as the war with Iran is dragging on, we're learning of a new issue with another ship in the U.S. fleet, this time in the South China Sea. NBC News senior national security correspondent Courtney Kube joins us now from Washington. So, the president has kind of pared back military drills with South Korea. At the same time, he is saying and talking about it, I just played, right, his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and the source of strength he gains from that relationship. Explain to us what these military exercises are for, what they do, and the objective of scaling them back now.
So there's two major exercises that the U.S. military and South Koreans conduct every single year: Ulchi Freedom Guardian and Ulchi Freedom Shield. One is in March and one is in August. In fact, one's going on right now. And basically, there's a couple of major objectives. The first one is just to show that the two partners maintain this strong alliance. It's decades old in the making, that they can operate together out in the field, that they can operate their systems together as well. So there's a big cyber component. But one of them is just to show the strength of the military and diplomatic alliance between these two nations. But another one is just to project power. So there is still this continuing concern now, again, decades in the making, from a threat from North Korea. And showing a strong united front by the U.S. and South Korea is one of the ways that they deter any kind of military action by North Korea. Those are the two main objectives. Now, on sort of the more micro level, though, there is a very real strengthening of this partnership when the two militaries get together and they talk about the little details that they may have to work out if, in fact, they are faced with that conflict. Yes, when these exercises are scaled back or even canceled, as they were in 2018 by President Trump, that has a real impact on the readiness of these two militaries to operate together.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.